Good afternoon, here with my internet use violation case study video. What do we know? Roosevelt High is an affluent area in a large city populated by students whose parents are able to provide and for the most part are secure financially. The school has been recognized as one of the most prestigious in the state. Dr. Forbes has been the principal here for 9 years and has been recognized as a principal of the year by his peers. And to maintain the school and his reputation, he hires only the highest qualified teachers. Miss Cindy Walker has been hired to teach specialized science courses. She's in her second year. A combination of tough subjects that she teaches along with her serious approach has developed a classroom with high stress levels. There have been complaints to Dr. Forbes, and he has addressed these to Miss Walker, but has yet to see successful implementation. Ms. Walker was made aware via email on a Sunday evening of a website containing suggestive and critical comments about her. The final comment spoke to her disappearing, which greatly upset Ms. Walker. She contacted Dr. Forbes, who requested the information she had received. He stated he would investigate this, and in the morning, Ms. Walker did mention one student's name as a possible suspect, and also mentioned that she was going to go stay the evening at her parents, feeling unsafe. What do we need to know? Obviously, we would like to know the source of the email and the threatening messages on the website. They could be two different people. They could both be students, or they could be disgruntled stakeholders as in parents of the school, or a combination of both. We need to know law enforcement's opinion of the situation. Something this kind of severe, I think, warrants their involvement. Obviously, we've been talking about freedom of speech. But obviously that line's drawn when it starts to include malice and threatening language and violence. Also, how has the environment in Ms. Walker's class been formed? Unfortunately, it kind of seems that maybe that has led to this situation. Has she worked since our meeting regarding earlier issues to change any of this? And obviously, very much important is what is Ms. Walker's opinion and emotions moving forward after this situation. In identifying the problem based on what we know and what we'd like to know, I see the problem as follows. Ms. Walker's classroom has created an environment that has escalated and culminated with this website being made that included suggestive and critical comments toward her on a personal and professional level. One threat in particular made her feel unsafe. So again, the problem being that we have this website out there, that now we have an environment at the school that has produced this, and now we also have a faculty member who feels unsafe not only at school but obviously just in her own residence. Plan of action moving forward. First, law enforcement will be contacted to look at the evidence. The first thing obviously would have been to gather the information, but Dr. Forbes has already done that. So I want law enforcement's opinion on what we can do within the law. Whoever started the site may believe they were had the right under First Amendment, because students to a certain extent can voice their opinions outside of school, on what they think of a teacher or administration or coach, and whatnot. But obviously, I believe this draws the line. The type of content it sounds like that was on here. They may be able to help us find out the origin of the site. Was it developed at school? Was it developed using school equipment? Some of that could come into play down the line when we start looking at punishment and consequences. Next, I would want to meet with Ms. Walker to discuss where she is at as a professional, what her feelings and emotions are right now. Is she going to be able to work through this situation? Something this, I guess, damaging may warrant some time away while it gets resolved. Part of the plan following the initial meeting with her, there needs to still be discussion related to her professional behavior and classroom management. That's kind of on the back burner right now, I believe, but it does need to at some point be part of a plan of action. Is she willing to make changes to help in her classroom? We want students to be challenged, but they need to understand why we are challenging them. I think a lot of times today students, if something gets hard, they don't really want to work for it, but that's something we try and teach students, especially students that are headed to college, is that at the collegiate level, post-secondary education, that classes are very difficult, very rigorous, and that's something we want to prepare them for. So while at the adolescent age it can be tough for them to understand that, it is something they need to be prepared for, but it needs to be something between the teacher and the students, an understanding of what is happening and why, and that way they get the most out of it. Finally, Miss Walker's classes need to be addressed in relation to their attitudes toward Miss Walker and her classes. Based on reports of previous incidents in her class, I'd like to begin with individual and small groups of students, and then possibly move on to talking with entire classes of Ms. Walker's. This plan would be executed based on the attitudes of the students toward what has happened. Being a building administrator, it's going to be important to kind of use resources in the building as far as faculty and staff to kind of get a feeling at where the building's at related to the situation. People are going to be talking about it. What is the feeling toward what has happened, and then use that information, I guess, to talk to students. And as I kind of mentioned later on in the slide here, with situations like this, it's amazing. A lot of times you'll get one or two students to kind of talk, and that'll hopefully help steamroll kind of into a resolution of the issue. Strategies for implementation of the plan. In order to implement the first part of my plan, I'll need to contact local law enforcement, and based on the relationship I've formed with local law enforcement, they'll be a great asset in this situation. Just at the beginning of the plan, I do not want students to feel like the police are present to increase an already volatile environment. I don't want them to feel threatened by having them around. I want them to understand that they're there to assist in a resolution to this threatening situation. Next, I need to contact Ms. Walker early in the day on Monday, possibly before school starts. If a substitute teacher's need, obviously one will need to be contacted. But I really want to, the biggest concern obviously is her emotional state and well-being based on the situation. I want to talk to some of her colleagues to help form a support net for her. And again, also part of the plan is to begin outlining some changes that need to occur in order for her to improve her classroom relationship with students and parents. I like a teacher, like I said, with high expectations, but at the same time it has to be productive for both the student and the teacher. Finally, I want to contact students who have previously had issues with Ms. Walker, personally or in class. They need to be told and understand that they're not necessarily suspects, that we're trying to kind of investigate the situation as a whole, not just an isolated incident, but obviously there's been previous incidents. Like I said, I'd like to start off meeting in small groups, and I want to hear their opinions and insight into the situation, and based on these findings, again, I may want to address some of her classes as a whole. Resolving the issues based on promoting the success of all students. Based on the success, I am utilizing the support of local law enforcement at the beginning of the investigation into what happened. In order for our students to succeed, they need to feel they are learning in an environment free of malice and violence. Resolving it based again on our promotion of success. I want to meet with Ms. Walker to help her with her instruction and classroom management. There's no problem, again, with having high expectations, but she needs to understand how to convey those to the students and how to get the most out of them in that type of setting. Finally, based on the success, I wanted to meet with the students to get their feelings regarding the situation. Doing so could help us in making changes and identifying potential situations in the future, which will obviously just help, again, all students be successful in an environment where stuff like this doesn't happen. What I was feeling, valuing, I was feeling upset, I guess, the way I would if this unfolded under my administration. I'd be upset that smaller issues had not been resolved earlier and now have led to this, a much more serious problem. Obviously, the website, leading to a faculty member feeling unsafe is would be a very disheartening thing to occur. I can't imagine taking that phone call and having to make decisions based on that. I was valuing the environment and safety of the school related to both the faculty, students, and staff. I never want to be the leader of a building where people do not feel safe coming to. A staff member feels this way, and obviously a group of students are dissatisfied with what is going on in the classroom. One of the slides had been misplaced somehow. Again, the first thing I was thinking about was receiving that phone call, how I would feel if I was the administrator on the other end of the line. I tried to put myself in that situation. I wouldn't want to overreact, and I believe Dr. Forbes did a good job of that. Something like this would give you an opportunity to go into school on a Monday morning, be very upset with students, and immediately start calling kids out, and that's something you really couldn't do. You'd have to keep yourself under control and really assess the situation as a whole. Went through those two slides. We get into identifying issues that are unresolved or open. The most important piece of unresolved information is who did it. And I don't want to jump to conclusions and wrongfully accuse any student or group of students. It could obviously be a disgruntled parent. You hear about that every once in a while in the news. But students need to know they need to cooperate and assist in resolving the situation. And since the offense occurred on the internet, I'm really hoping that can help us find the culprits. Another issue is following the identification of the offending parties. What an unresolved issue is, what's punishment going to be? What are we allowed to do? If it didn't occur on the school ground, is this something that law enforcement is going to be more involved in? What rights will the school have to punish a student? Are we looking at a suspension or an expulsion? Obviously, this is all open based on how we find out who did what and how that's resolved. And finally, it's still unclear what Ms. Walker wants to do moving forward in education. An event like this for a young teacher who has already dealt with adversity could be enough for her to change her profession. If not, and we hope it's not the case, what is she willing to change in order to be a better educator? Standard 5, which is what the case study revolved around, is a building level administrator who promotes the success of students by acting with integrity, fairness, and in an ethical manner. I believe I acted with integrity by addressing the situation immediately. This included looking at the material Ms. Walker received immediately. I think sometimes, especially when you start talking about an affluent school, you can talk about things maybe being kept quiet or kept under wraps, but I think it's in the best interest of myself as an administrator and as a school as a whole to immediately start looking into the situation. I was acting with the safety and well-being of staff members and success of students in mind. Acting with fairness. Would not be jumping to conclusions based on Ms. Walker's accusation of a student. I wanted to be fair by meeting with groups of students to get a feel for what had happened. In something like this, you can often find a student, like I said earlier, who's going to talk and help you with some information, having students be open to helping to resolve the situation. Now, I also believe I've acted fairly with Ms. Walker. Though she is the victim, some would become upset with her continual lack of change that has heightened the lackluster environment in her classroom. And so her continuing inability to change will lead to confrontation, asking her to meet our school standards. Finally, when we start talking about a code of ethics, I believe I demonstrated my personal code of ethics based on concern for Ms. Walker. Although there's a lot for a building leader to deal with in this situation, the safety and well-being of Ms. Walker has to be the most important issue early in resolving it. I also believe a professional code of ethics was shown by utilizing outside resources to assist in resolving the problem. I think it would be unethical to overuse power in this situation. Getting assistance in the situation can help an administrator see things that they may miss on their own. Anytime we had something this year at our school that involved local law enforcement, it was great to have an outside source kind of help us look at different things as opposed to just one person trying to take on a big situation like this.